It's always great to come to Canada. It's my favorite conference. This is my first conference that I ever did after I was diagnosed with acromegaly, so this has a special spot in my heart with it. So thank you for inviting me again, and I'm going to be mercifully short. So I know this is a doldrums. If you're a sailor, you know what that is. No wind. So I think that's how we all feel at 4 in the afternoon almost. So. Anyway, so what I want to talk a little bit about today is, first I'm going to give you like a 5-minute recap of what Pituitary World News is and why we founded it. We are this is the way that magazine looks on the site. And if we have time, I'll show it to you. But we are pretty much I call it the Huffington Post of the Pituitary World, if you know what the Huffington Post is. So it's like a news aggregator and a way to get information out. And we think in terms of macro communications. How do we get more people aware of what pituitary disease is, in this case acromegaly? Is there a way that we need to look at the disease that it's different than the way that we've been looking at it? And are there ways that we can talk about this differently so the people that are not affected pay attention, which is where we want to be. It's about awareness. I should tell you that I grew up in the communications world. My first couple of jobs were in big advertising, Madison Avenue agencies, and I learned that awareness is everything. If you can get somebody to recall something, it's half the battle. And because now you know this exists. So the world is getting, I think, much tougher for us communication professionals. It's a lot more difficult today to get a message out there than it used to be, let's say, 20 years ago. So the content of Pituitary World News is articles. We write opinion editorials. We podcast. We have about 170 podcasts. We do vlogs now, video programs. We produce 3 television programs that are grand rounds, based on the old grand rounds of how doctors and patients, how the doctor explained a case with a patient. We've done 3 of those, and we have educational videos. And then it's about insights, which is what I want to talk to you about today. How do we learn what you think, so what we put here makes sense and we can use it to expand our messaging? A little bit about our reach and impact. When we started this 10 years ago, and I think we immediately started to get an audience. But we've gone through 10 years of learning how to do it better, growing. We've gone through the the frustrations, let's say, of social media, where the algorithms are preventing people from seeing things, not giving them things. We're agreeing with, okay, good. Yeah, I need that. So for example, when we started in 2014, if I published something and pushed it through social media, we would get reach in the tens of thousands numbers. Today, that number is 400. And it's not that people aren't getting it, it's just that they don't see it because let me say that again. The algorithm is preventing or not showing it to them. So I've had patients come to us and say, hey, I know you guys are doing a patient conference, and I didn't see it. Well, it was all over, sent it all over Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we didn't see it. So it is an issue that we have to deal with today. The good news, I think, that for Pituitary World News is that we are what's called organic searches are up. So when people are reaching for learning or Googling some word or some term, we may show up a little faster than, so our audiences are continuing to increase. This is what you may go in the middle of the day and look at the analytics, and you'd see 6 people on, and that gives you some statistics. I look at it all the time. I'm obsessed with it. You know, I want to know how many people are reading it and why, and what article is hitting, and what article it does, and what people are doing with it. You know, things like that. This is a good day. You know, this is how the world lights up when you publish something. And when I publish something, I immediately go to this and say. So this kind of a graphic always makes me think about what are the things that we're doing right with this and not right with the other one that got 6, let's say. And how do we increase the interest in this? How do we talk about it is important. Because, like I was saying, you know, I think when I started in the advertising business of communications, we used to talk about reach and frequency. It would take 5 times for someone to see a message before they recalled it. And sometimes you had to, what it's called, aided recall. You had to give people a list of brands and say, do you recognize any of these? Because they wouldn't recall it. That number today, I don't know, it's probably 25, 30 times. So when you think about the awesome work that we have to put out there to get people to recognize that acromegaly as a disease exists, not just alone what it does, just that it exists. You know, it's just a daunting task to think about it. So the more we learn, the better we get at it, the more participation we get from you guys, and I think Jill mentioned it, and every presenter that was here, your participation is critical. It's for us to learn how to do this better. And your stories are incredible, and they're important, and we have to get them out there, but we have to do it in a way that people want to pay attention. Otherwise, it's just noise. And you know that we will spin on these things. Anyway, this is a little bit about usage details. I'm not going to get too much into that, but we get around 6,000 to 10,000 visitors on the site a month, and that's about an average. Mostly, you can see in this particular slice, we're having more mobile devices on than desktop. So we made sure that we designed the stories so they render well on a phone. So if you want to, you know, go to your phones and put pituitaryworldnews.org, you'll get a sense of what's on the site right now and the stories that we're working on and we're publishing. This is an idea of the podcast. I think our podcasts do really well, and we're in every podcasting platform. So if you use Apple or Spotify or Google, whatever it is out there, you can find us there. And this we also just quickly here because there's a lot of audiences to reach, and we've segmented these audiences to learn if we were going to target messages, which audiences should be getting, and every audience deserves a different message. So you talk differently, let's say, to get something on a patient blog than you would talk to a pharmacist about acromegaly. And all those efforts are, I think, it depends how much time you have and resources to say, okay, can we do a campaign, a separate campaign for each of these? That's usually, you know, also a daunting task. And this is a little bit of our current projects and initiatives. When we started, we thought about the logic of everything that we were doing. You know, how does it move? How do you move from making certain assumptions to activities and outputs, and then they become outcomes, and then those outcomes have impact in people? So we thought about communications in a strategic way. That is, in today's world, putting information out there without thinking about these things is counterproductive. It just doesn't do anything. So I urge you to think about when you look at the magazine, to think about what you think should be a good story, and share it with us, and tell us. You know, you're reading something, tell us, okay, I think about this story all the time, or oh boy, I mean, if you did it this way or that way. We don't hear much of that, and so I'd like to invite you all to get a hold of me or get in touch with some of that feedback, if that makes sense. I'm going too fast, or is this? Okay, good. So the thing that we've been thinking about is, I've been thinking about it because I have acromegaly, and I was probably 20 years without getting a diagnosis. I was diagnosed in 2010, and the first question that I had was, okay, how does this happen? Acro what was my name. My orthopedic surgeon diagnosed me because, that's typically what happens. You have a hip problem, and oh my God, you have acromegaly. Okay, you got to go see an endocrinology. That was my thing. So I always thought about, okay, the identity that it had. When I Googled acromegaly, it was just all these pictures of extreme cases of acromegaly. Nobody looked, some people looked like I did, and I said, oh, I recognize myself in here now. But I had probably every symptom that was listed in those websites. So imagery was a thing. I always thought about Under the Giant as an image to acromegaly, because most people say, oh, so you have acromegaly. See, that's what Under the Giant is. And my thought was always, look, if we all we do is think about Under the Giant, we're never going to think about most people like acromegaly that look absolutely nothing like Under the Giant. And I think Dr. Prevatani, you mentioned it today in your presentation. They just miss it. It's not there. So the idea of getting, talking to medical schools and making presentations. I remember a few years back with Dr. Blevins, who's my partner in this. We started this together from UCSF. We did a presentation at an endocrine conference with endocrinologists, and I think for half the audience, I was the first acromegaly patient they've ever seen. And we did this sort of grand rounds kind of thing. It was a very interesting experience. So I'm talking about, we talked about identity, imagery, and stigma as the key things that we need to think about when we learn to talk about acromegaly. And this is my opinion as a communicator. I think we have to change as patients and as advocates and as people that want to get engaged and involved. We have to figure out how to change the narrative. That's what people think about when they think about acromegaly. So changing how we talk about a subject changes how people perceive it. It's perception. If I think that acromegaly people look like Andre the Giant, I'm never going to look at somebody like Heather and suspect acromegaly. We created Pituitary World in part to accomplish some of that. So how do we decide how we talk about it? What's the work that we have to do to learn? So the thing is, we have to understand how we talk about it presently. What's out there, situationally, how are things described, how we talk about it. And then we work to understand how we should talk about it so it better reflects the realities of what patients and people are going through that have acromegaly. And those are descriptions and images and words, and that's what we're going to ask you to do, is to tell us how you think about acromegaly. And for that we have a little bit of an exercise which is hopefully going to give us some insights into the things that you think about when you think about your disease. How do you explain it? How do you talk about it? What sort of the attitudes you have towards everything that comes with it? And so I just put here, this is what is an insight. An insight is a deep understanding or an accurate and often subtle realization of the inner nature or underlying truth of something. So what happens in research sometimes is if I ask you a question, tell me what it feels like to live with acromegaly in a focus group setting. There's probably going to be a lot of biased responses. You're going to be responding in a way that maybe not on purpose, but you're going to give me things that, for example, answers that you may think that I want to hear or that your group is going to hear, instead of saying exactly what you think happens. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, but it's very prevalent in qualitative research, where a good moderator will sort of manipulate the group to start talking about certain things, which bias their response. All of a sudden, people aren't telling you what they feel, they're telling you what you think they you want to hear. So who do we need to hear from to do this? We need to hear from you, all of you, from healthcare professionals, from our docs and our nurses, and say, how do they perceive this? From our friends and family, the people that we rely on for support. And then from the public in general. From other rare conditions that are going through the same thing, we want to hear how they talk about it. And also from our government officials, how they feel, because all of this has huge impact. I have to tell you that I recently wrote a piece at Pituitary World News that talked about the word acromegaly, which I hate. And I wrote up this thing mostly to see if I could get a rise out of people, and I did. I got a ton of comments and stuff. So if you have a second, read it and let me know what you think about it, because I think the name is awful and it's not letting us get to this awareness thing. Anyway, but that's a personal thing, and sometimes we write things to get attention so we can get more eyeballs on the information that we want people to read. So yeah, on this one, you're the expert. And I'm going to give you, I think Deanna's going to pass some things to you, go to this link, and there's a quick survey. We can, if you want to, can we click on this so we can? I think my presentation is almost over. So this is kind of like a creative exercise. This is about you creatively doing telling me a few stories, storytelling, and answering some questions that will help us figure out, all of us together, how do we talk about acromegaly. So I'm going to go through. I'll go through a few of the questions, and then tomorrow when we present, if you've had a chance to look at this and think about it, we can discuss it. And you guys can ask questions, and I would love to get your input, and then obviously to complete it. So if you could hit the, yeah. So this is, for example, here, next one. This is the interesting. This is what you're going to find. So I want to ask you that if you were to describe acromegaly as a person, what kind of person would that be? Let's say you saw the person with acromegaly, or this person called acromegaly at a party. How would you describe it? What possible attitudes, behavior, clothing, personality this person has? Is it a man? Is it a woman? What are the styles? How does he dress? That kind of thing. Kind of a story on how this person looks. Okay, there's another example is, imagine you're a newspaper. So you're a newspaper editor or a journalist, a junior journalist, because this is typically what happens in a newspaper when you're first starting out. They send you to write obituaries. So imagine that you're a newspaper, magazine writer or blogger, and you're asked to write an obituary or paragraph about the death of acromegaly. And if you go, look at an obituary, you would just get an idea of how people write about an obituary. So that's a great exercise also. It's fun to do also because when we look at them, there's all kinds of interesting things that people write and that we all write, as we think about this. Next, for example, is, this is a little bit of variation of that, but this would be to simplify your obituary in 3 or 4 words. The epitaph, on the death of acromegaly. So here's an example that I wrote. Here lies Napoleon Bonaparte, emperor, a person with a big ego and a certified nutball. So kind of think about acromegaly in those terms and say, what are the 3 or 4 words? Next. So imagine what would life be without it. Also, again, think about storytelling and writing. How would you describe your life without acromegaly? What sort of things come to mind? Next. Now this was really interesting to pick only 3 words that describe it. And then the next one, please. Pick from those 3 words, just pick one. And by the way, thanks, Jill, for the input on that one. She looked at it and she said, okay. Next, this one I really like because it's happened. And this is something that you may have experience with, is that you're in an elevator and you're trying to tell somebody what acromegaly is, and that you don't, or something about acromegaly that this person won't forget, but you only have 3 or 4 floors to do it. That's 20, 30 seconds. What is that? If you think about that, those 30 seconds, I don't want this person to forget what I just said. What do I say? And the next one, I think we're getting towards the end. This one's happened to all of us, and we have all stories. I remember writing an article about it, and you see somebody that you think is acromegaly, and do you go, do I do something? Do I say something? And if you do, what do you say? So that's that part. So anyway, we don't have to go through the whole thing. Please go to the link, take a look at it, and tomorrow it's just like playing. This is really going to be fun to do. I think next, is that it? I think that's it. No? Okay, so this is the flyer that we just gave you, and I would go to this website. The website's ready to go. It's live. Just click on the link, and you can write in there. It doesn't have to be. You can write as much as you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. What's important is that you think about it and you give us your insight into these things. So we are going to do this, I think, with every pituitary disease. We're sort of thinking, wondering what kind of feedback we're going to get to maybe fine-tune it a little bit, and then ask people to write whatever their disease is, and then go through their answers. So anyway, do you have any questions about the project or Pituitary World News? Or I'm happy to answer. So thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I was just going to say thank you, Deanna, for inviting me again.
Absolutely.
I love being here, so you know that.
Yeah. Is anybody got a question for JD?
I do. Yeah, I won't be here tomorrow, so I think a lot of it will come up in the working session. But I am curious of, like, I'm sure those with acromegaly have lots of experiences with it. But, like, how do you engage with someone who has, like, completely no idea what acromegaly is, or it comes up in conversation and they ask questions? I just wonder if any stories or examples.
I don't know. Does anybody have a good story about? Yeah.
If I suspect someone has acromegaly, I literally walk up to them and I say, have you ever heard the word acromegaly? And find out what their reaction is. And if they say no, I don't go over the appearance changes. I go over, well, do your joints hurt? Do you have a headache? Do you have soft tissue swelling? I go through the symptoms with them. And if they say, yeah, I have all of this, I'll say, I recommend that you see a good endocrinologist. And if you need any help, I can help. I can point you in the right direction of someone that knows about acromegaly.
So my experience twice. It happened to me once at an airport lounge, and there was somebody sitting maybe a couple of seats from me, and I'm going, this person has acromegaly. I'm sure, because we all, when we have it, we're convinced that everybody has it. Anything that looks a little bit, it's, oh God, you go. And I think I had an anxiety level that I couldn't, because I couldn't get myself to get up and go to this person and say, whatever come out, something like you just mentioned, or I was thinking, or maybe I just said, listen, you have this disease called acromegaly, and you kind of look like me, so you should, so it was not, so it was so anxiety producing that I said, okay, I'm going to go to the washroom and wash my hands, and when I came back, he was gone, and I still remember the fact that I didn't say anything, because if somebody would have come to me, 10 years into this, when I was in my late 30s, I probably would have been, somebody would have looked at it and connected the dots. So saying something is critical. And Doctor.
I've had a couple of similar stories where I've been at a mall in Hamilton, and I always make sure it's a very sensitive matter, right? But what I've done is I've thought about it, because you just don't want to go and be impulsive and talk to the person or the patient. Not my patient yet, but and I introduce myself as I'm a doctor and I deal with this certain condition quite a bit. I see a lot of acromegaly, but I won't say I see. I'm just saying that I'm going to try to present it that way. Yeah. And it's actually, I just said to the person that, is it okay? I get consent. Is it okay if I speak to you, because I'm a physician? And I've just noticed that I have patients that have a similar appearance as you, in a very sensitive manner, of course, right? Because you don't want to be offensive.
No.
Because they might already have the diagnosis known. They might already be seeing someone. And I'll just say similar things like, Jill, I won't go into the physical a lot. It'll be short, but it'll be more. Do you have diabetes? Do you have joint pains, which is a big thing? Do you have problems sleeping at night? And then often, if they don't know about the diagnosis, they take it actually quite well. And then I just say that I'm concerned because I see a lot of this, because you want to relate to the patient, right? You want to relate. And then I tell them that you may have this condition, and then it's probably worthwhile to see your family doctor. In Canada, it's different. You have to see a family doctor in Canada, as you know, before they see a specialist. It's a little bit different than the rest of the world. And then I recommend, then I'd be happy to see you if your doctor does the right testing, and I give them the testing. And I've had 2 or 3 people like that in the mall, and it's gone really, really well. Actually, they've been very appreciative, actually, at the end of the day. It's the sensitive, you just got to do it in a very sensitive manner, right? In a non-judgmental, sensitive manner.
Yeah. I recall an experience where I was talking to a physician, a neuroendocrinologist also in Spain, and his response was, absolutely not, you can't do that. So there's a cultural element to this. My son, on the other hand, he had a friend that he suspected had acromegaly, somebody that he knew, and he called me and said, Dad, what should I do? And I said, well, go tell him. Of course, it wasn't me doing it. So he did. He said, hey, you look, my dad has this, and I think you have it too. And he went and got checked, and he had indeed a pituitary tumor. He had acromegaly, diagnosed. He got the tumor completely resected, and he's in total remission.
So we have a patient.
This is in Oregon, yeah.
Yeah, we have a patient in the U.S. that recently contacted me. He's a bartender in Miami, Florida. And he said that he was busy doing his job, and someone walked up to him and handed him a business card, and he was busy. He got home that night, and it said, you should have your IGF-1 checked. And he turned it over, and it was actually a neurosurgeon. And he went to his general doctor, had his IGF-1 checked, and sure enough, it was extremely high. But the story is a very positive one, because he called me, and they had just sent him for the MRI, and his tumor was only like 6 or 8 millimeters. And he said, I want to go back to that neurosurgeon because he recognized that I have this disease. And I said, no. You need to go to who is best, not just because he recognized the disease. And I found out who had the best reputation in that area. He had surgery with him, and he is in complete remission with no pituitary damage whatsoever. And it was because someone walked up to him and helped him get it sooner rather than later.
When you think about the simplicity of awareness and how it works, that's what it is people recognizing and doing something and saying something and engaging when you think that you maybe shouldn't be engaging, or sending a comment to our publication about something that you're thinking that could spur a whole bunch of other things and other ideas to learn how to better get this word out.
And it's not easy. Like, it wasn't easy for me because I have tons of patients.
Yeah, I could
with
imagine.
Tumors, but I still had to really think about it a lot because I just didn't want to offend that person, right? And the worst thing you can ever do is say that you look like Andre the Giant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Well, and he thought just because someone recognized acromegaly that he was the best surgeon for it. And, you know, I had to say, no, let me find out who is the best surgeon in your area. Because he was like, I'm going to him. And I'm like, no. And he went to the best surgeon, and he had a really positive outcome.
Dr. Blevins tells a story about his experience, just like yours. He went up to this gentleman I think it was at an airport, and the guy really reacted negatively, and he just told him pretty much to go. I'm not going to use expletive, but pretty much he told him,
So,
"Who the hell are you?" But 4 months later, he gets a call from his wife, because his wife that was there made him go check himself. and then the guy called Blevins, he was from Florida or someplace, and said, "Listen, I just want to thank you for what you did. Please do more of this." So it's a great story.
so many years ago, my granddaughter was living with Malcolm and I. We took her in for a while, and she was into sports. So there was a big tournament going on, so I'd go pick her up from school and drive her to all her sports stuff. And I just happened to be standing in this gym, and all the kids are running around. And I looked towards the door, and I seen this gentleman walking in, and I just stopped dead. And I just looked at him. And he had these big, big, round, black raccoon eyes. I had that. I didn't have any changes of my facial features or anything. I hadn't gained a lot of weight or anything, but I looked like I'd been punched out, literally. And people actually thought I was on drugs, and which I wasn't. But I had big, massive black eyes, and I was tired all the time. And I just stopped cold, and just something inside of me was screaming, "Go talk to him, go talk to him, talk to him." And, so I waited till the competition was over, and he was standing around talking, and I said, I know I don't, sorry to interrupt, I know I don't know you, but do you have a few seconds that I can talk to you? And he goes, "Absolutely, sure." So we kind of squandered away, and I said, "How long you had your black eyes?" And he's like, "A long time." I said, "Are you tired?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm tired, but I make it through the day." I said, "I'm not going to tell you this to scare you, but I'm going to tell you that you need to go and see your doctor and get an endocrinologist, because I think you have a pituitary disorder, but 99.9% it's benign, and you'll be okay." But I had the same black eyes. And he's like, "Oh my God," because my friends ask me all the time why my eyes are so black, and I don't know. I said, "Go see your doctor. You probably have a pituitary tumor, right?" I said, "But don't be scared, because it's not cancerous." And I've never seen him again after that, but in my heart, I feel like I saved somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
Better to say something than not.
But then I had an experience in Toronto doing our conference, and I went outside because I go outside, and there was this lady sitting there, and she absolutely looked like she had acromegaly. So I thought she was there attending the conference. So I said to her, I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you came and you made it. I'm looking forward to, seeing you in the conference and that." And she goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, the Acromegaly conference." And she just looked at me, she goes, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not here for the conference." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just thought maybe." Well, apparently after I left to go back in the hotel, she went just mental, because I had approached her assuming she was coming to the acromegaly meeting and what acromegaly was, right? So it's always a hit to pass. It's never going to be a positive outcome, but then there's going to be a positive outcome next time, right? Because you just don't know. And I'm telling you right now, I bet you she's already been diagnosed with acromegaly since, and that was 3 years ago, because I know she had it, right?
Great.
So any more questions? Oh, hang on, Bruce had a question.
Well, it sort of fits in. It's interesting because you're talking about public awareness. And what's been demonstrated here is public awareness one person at a time. It's going to take a long time using this method. Yeah. I set up a mobile crisis team and a regional mental health crisis line a few years ago. And one of my biggest challenges was trying to get the population to know that it was there for them to use. Public awareness, very difficult. And I had some success in using very provocative advertising imagery and messaging. and people noticed it. And all I cared about was that they knew the resource was there.
Sure.
What was different from then to now is there was no AI. And I wonder how you might leverage AI either as a tool for you or how it might impede what you're trying to do.
Well, yeah, bad news, good news, AI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been, we've delved into a little bit of AI. We've had mixed results with sourcing, and if it's good, the data is bad, then what comes back is bad. It's been very helpful.
Sorry, you just keep moving.
Oh, yeah.
Not too much.
In editing, for example, it's been very helpful with editing. We've also looked at these, what are they called? I'm not going to remember the name of it. There's a technical name for it there. Well, anyway, what it does is it translates immediately to another language. So the person that is, if you videotape somebody, the person that is speaking, you can hit German and it'll be speaking in German perfectly. And the lips are moving the way, the German. So for us, we thought this may be a game changer to be able to start publishing in other languages, which we publish in Spanish now, but we want to publish in other languages as well. In terms of targeting, better targeting of advertising, we have not, or messaging, we have not used AI yet. There's a couple of platforms that are being tested right now that do that, that help organizations understand better where their audiences are and how to get to them. And I'm suspecting that's going to be probably the next step in media. And it's going to be something that is going to be highly monetized. So for organizations like ours that live on a string, budget and, really can't advertise unless we do something that's more PR or public relations, it's going to be very difficult. So I'm guessing that you're going to see the Nielsen's of the world and the big research companies monetize this stuff for big corporations and for targeting. So I don't know, there's so much going on and it's moving so fast. It's almost daunting and scary at the same time. So misinformation is another big issue. And I think AI may be helpful in identifying quickly what's something that is either not factual or purposely put there to misinform people. Disinformation and misinformation, and then just plain bad information that hurts people more than helps them. So anyway, well, thank you very much for your attention. Thanks, Deanna. I look forward to tomorrow.